Good morning. Loree Penner here for Steep Spiritual Sustenance on Monday, June 29th. Can you believe that June is almost over? Today's reading in our Bible reading is Exodus 3, and it's the story of Moses at the burning bush. And it says that Moses saw this bush that was burning, and yet it wasn't consumed. And so he thought, what's going on here? And he went over to investigate. So I grew up, many of you know, in Northern California, actually in Southern and Northern California. And California is a very, very dry state. And the summertime is when there is almost no rain. Yesterday in my hometown of Chico, it was 110. And that's not unusual for summertime. Dry, very, very dry. So we are about to begin what has started to be called fire season in the West because of the dryness, because of the years of drought, and because everything is like a tinderbox. One of the worst things you can do in California is flick a cigarette butt out your window. I see people do that here all the time, and I still jump when I see it because in California or in other Western states, it will start a fire. You can be sure of it. And those fires move quickly. They burn quickly, and it's very scary. So I thought about that when I was thinking about Moses today, thinking about how he was pondering this bush. And I thought, he was in a very dry climate. And I bet he was thinking, well, a bush is burning. Is probably the first thought he thought was, oh my gosh, the bush is burning, I got to put it out. But then he noticed that it didn't go anywhere. The flame didn't go anywhere. It just stayed in the bush. So he went over to look, and that's when God got him. That's when the Holy Spirit began to talk to him, this angel of the Lord, as it's called in Genesis or in Exodus. This angel of the Lord began to talk to him and tell him that he was being called to a particular work, and Moses listened. I don't know how many of us would listen to a voice coming from a bush. Ask yourself, would you listen? Would you know right off that this was a manifestation of God speaking to you? Those kinds of things don't happen very often these days. I hear some stories, but not very many. So what would you do if you were Moses and you saw this burning bush? What would you do? Living in Maryland, you might not have the first instant thought of, oh my gosh, it's going to spread, but you would still want to put out the fire. And you might go over there and see that, oh, well, that's interesting. It's not going anywhere. And then the Holy Spirit might start speaking to you. And what would God say to you today? This Monday, this last Monday in June, this Monday that is before the 4th of July, this Monday where we are still in the midst of COVID-19 and it is spreading in many parts of the country. This day when there are still protests everywhere. There is still no justice for people of color. I read a disturbing story about a young Muslim woman who had to be escorted to her car in Minneapolis because of the presence of hate gangs. There's a lot of scary things out there right now. What would God say to you? The first thing he said to Moses was the same thing that he said to Abraham, the same thing that the angel said to Mary, the same thing we hear over and over and over again in the Bible. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, Moses. This is me. I'm here talking to you. Don't be afraid. I am with you. Don't be afraid. I won't leave you. No matter what happens, no matter how things continue on in life, No matter whether things get better or worse, don't be afraid, because I am with you. Don't be afraid. I need that word today. I hope you do too. Have a blessed day.